Okay. Good morning, everyone. Uh, this is Ron, and I wanted to talk this morning about love and kindness. It's something we've talked about now for at least a year, I guess, and as our commitments have changed, and we've not changed so much as growing into the more and seeing more and growing into being Elohim and supporting that and being comfortable with it. And so I want to talk this morning about what do you get from being loving kindness? What is it not from receiving it or giving it? But what is it that we're seeing here? And as most of my messages, I guess, are things that I see that initiate or spark a conversation within me and that I take to you, is something personal usually happens. And with this, it was stemmed from a conversation that I had with a loved one. And from that conversation, we were talking about someone else, and that person, my loved one, kind of took it in a different direction than I expected, and kind of a disdain thing that he had for the other person, and there was nothing really to support it, and it caught me off guard. It really kind of shocked me, and I haven't forgotten it, and it made me kind of look at me as far as looking every day at work and seeing how many opportunities do we have each and every day to be loving kindness. How many, you can say even by how many encounters that you have. And some of those encounters may even be nonverbal. But it starts with your energy. It starts with who you are. And as we'll see as we get into this, love is something that is birthed from inside of you. It's that spark inside of you that just explodes with goodness, with joy, and with something you just have to share with others. So it comes as with no pretense. It comes with nothing that is owed back to you. It's something that you should give readily and just in abundance, because it's something that that you can never run out of. Being goodness, being kind to people. So I want to invite you to look at something with me. Let's look at Micah chapter 6, Micah. And Micah, this is my first time looking at this book, and it comes after the chapter of Jonah, if you're like me and didn't quite know where it was. Comes after the book of Jonah, but it's Micah. And Micah, for those of you who, like me, was one of the prophets. I knew that much about him, but he was doing the time, I think, along with Isaiah. So his book is very short. I want to say only 7 chapters, okay? But it's something in here in chapter 6 that I think kind of falls in line with what we want to talk about. Oh, before I go any further, I guess I'm a little excited and want to talk about this. But as always, I want to start with questions. If we have any questions on particularly what took place yesterday with our lesson, any questions there, anything that was said that you have questions and or comments on, because if you do, we can start with that. This can be done at another time. I want to make sure that we have clarity on that, and anything that you may have seen or heard this week that you like to comment or question on, please feel free. Pastors on the line, please feel free. No one? Okay. Well, then we'll go to Micah chapter 6, and I'm going to start reading in chapter 6. And this is short. Like I say, this is a simple lesson. I hope we have some input from it. If you see where I'm kind of headed with this. But I'm looking at, again, chapter 6, starting with verse 6, it says, What shall I come to the Lord? And bow myself before God on high? Shall I come to him with burnt offerings, with yearling calves? Does the Lord take delight in thousands of rams, in 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I present my firstborn for my rebellious acts, the fruit of my body for the sins of my soul? Here is the verse that really kind of is the meat of our discussion. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, to love, be kind, to walk humbly with your God. So as you look at that, verse 8 seems like it's in direct contrast to verse 6 and 7. Because you look at 6 and 7 and you see all these things, and if you are familiar with the Old Testament, you see these are things that man had done from the beginning to try to please God, try to please his creator. And I'm likening this to where we are today, because what we do today, I'm calling these things, for lack of a better understanding of it, religious things. These are things that we do, the ceremonies that we partake in, all the things that we celebrate, all the things that we worship, all that we talk about the communion table. We talk about how we do communion, or the different things, our worshiping of the cross, and how we hold Mary in such high esteem. All of those are religious things, but none of those things cross the path of the poor. None of those things have any bearing on your treatment or your, how you feelings or what you do for those who are less fortunate than you. So that's what I wanted to kind of look at today, because these things, these are things that are readily before us, and we see them all the time. And maybe there are things that we take for granted. I look at verses 6 and 7 as being part of most of our paths. It is the thing that has gotten us to the place where we are today. It started us on a journey that looked right, that all the ceremonies and all the things that we may have gone through, but each and every one of us would not be on this phone if we didn't stop to pause or ponder what you were learning or what you were seeing. And the question whether or not this looks right, or whether it's getting you any closer to your aim, which is to walk with God or walk with the Creator, to be one with the Creator. So we got to a point, because all these ritual things still take place, but we got to a point where we stepped off of that path and stopped and took a look at who we were and decided, okay, what direction do I go into now? And from that desire to see more, the Creator has put you on a different journey. And that is kind of has led you to where we are now. And even though in a lot of ways there's still things you ponder, there's still things that we may wrestle with, there's still things that we lack in understanding, we've moved to the place where now I know that some things that may be said, I may not always understand with my mind, but I trust the vibration in me that I feel. And I know what feels right. And I know that, and I trust in time that I will see with my eye as though even though my mind may not readily see what is being said or done. So I'm just trying to kind of set up verses 6 and 7 because I wasn't going to go into them so much as just to talk about what they represent, the concept that they represent, not so much word for word about what is being said there. But any questions or comments before we go on?
Ron.
Yes, sir.
In verse 7.
Okay.
When it says that will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000 of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgressions, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? That brought to mind one of the things that I mentioned yesterday, that Jesus' teachings was unrelated to blood sacrifice for the forgiveness of sin.
Okay.
And when I looked at that a moment ago, it brought that back to mind because we have been taught that Jesus was sacrificed for our sin, which means that as we have been taught that Jesus is the Son of God, then God sacrificed His Son, did a human sacrifice for the recompense of sin. However, Micah writes that this is not so by virtue of raising that question. Shall I give my firstborn for the sin of my soul? So that sheds new light on how we view this whole concept of sacrifice, the concept of the sacrifice for the retribution of sin, or for recompense for sin.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah.
I do believe that Jesus' crucifixion had everything to do with his teachings about about how we should rise above our shortcomings, our entanglements, what we call our sins, of course. However, I think it has a totally different connotation than what we have been taught. That's all.
Okay. Okay, I agree. Questions or comments, y'all? Anybody else that want to speak on this?
Good morning, Ron. Good morning,
yes,
everybody.
Sir. Hey, George.
Yeah, this is George. When you first started out and you mentioned the word loving kindness, I think we have grasped that, again, God or Elohim, is spirit. And when you talked about, the attributes, of God, it made me just give thought, in terms of how scriptures is written. And I just wanted to refer to, Galatians just for a moment, because I think in there it talked about the characteristics, of God. And I just wanted to, ask the question, to everybody, does that, resonate, or is that, something that we should consider when, Apostle Paul talked about in verse number 22, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. But would those also be characteristics of God that we should consider or look at when we talk about who, in terms of Elohim or God? I don't know if that is coming across clear.
Yes, George, and I invite others to answer this as well. I say, of course, it is. Yes. The reason why I chose love and kindness is one, that is it was no coincidence that is the verbiage that Pastor used, that God put in him when we first started this journey. being compassionate, being loving kindness. And what I like about it is it contains all those other attributes that you just named. Loving kindness, it makes me be gentle. It makes me be patient. And I can't remember some of the other ones but it just kind of holds all of those things in, because what it really talks about is, I see, as I get to know myself and I love and respect myself and become aware of who I am, I see every man as my equal. I treat every man with the same love and respect. So yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But I looked at loving kindness as being the one that kind of holds all of these things together. And if somebody else can have a better view on that, or a different view for that matter, please feel free.
I think
Ron, this is okay. This is ST. Was somebody else getting ready to go?
Go ahead, Ed.
I was gonna ask a question and pose a comment in that regard. We're supposed to become love and kindness, or realize that we are. But when you read that verse, I sort of looked at it as pulling yourself back, and it's pulling yourself into balance when it comes to different attributes, because we're all not at the same place at the same time. And that's one of the reasons it takes all of us to kind of pull that, to kind of pull that attribute that we're lacking on. We need balance and to pull it together, because, for instance, you may have someone who's able to work with kids, teach kids. They have a greater patience and just ability to do that than some others who aren't as patient, and they may take a little more time to develop that patience. And so I think in the development, I look at it as a balance that requires all of us to realize our connection, so that you can bring out the necessary attributes in the person that you're, reflecting or facing, or in your circles, because we're all at different places at different times. Being loving kindness, for instance, may come so much easier to a certain individual who's already balanced and really understands it, versus someone who's, trying to get there to that point of being loving kindness. So I kind of agree with what George had said, but I look at it more from that balancing standpoint, that when we look at ourselves, we realize where we are lacking, or where the balance is out of balance, and you connect with someone who can also bring you more into a balanced state when it comes to loving kindness. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Matter of fact, what you just stated is the requirement to walk humbly with our God.
Yeah.
That's what you just being in a state of humility, recognizing that everyone is not at the same place at the same time.
Yeah, it's. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Barbara. Whoever was talking.
This is Barbara. I was going to piggyback on what ST was saying, because my mind went there as well, where we are centered. If you just remember our studies of the Tree of Life years ago, the center, where we're centered, is in love and kindness, which balances both realms. And so in Colossians 3:14, it talks about, regardless of what our virtues are, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. It's the glue. You can accomplish anything in love. Yes.
And that's what I was trying to say. George was right on point. Love is what just balances and brings it up. And when you look at this, when you look at loving kindness and look at chesed, which is Hebrew for kindness, it talks about beauty and being balanced. So you're exactly right. You're right on point. And to further illustrate something that ST said, if you look at the last verse in chapter 6, verse 9, it says, and to walk humbly with your God. It does not just say God, there is Elohim, but why didn't it just say to walk humbly with Elohim? What it is saying is exactly what ST said and what you guys are saying. You are at different places. We're not all together. And the balance that comes to us is that when all of us come together, because what I bring to the table will not be the same as what Pastor and I bring together, and what adding Barbara brings together, and adding George brings together. So all of these pieces, because of the humility and the humbleness, it all comes together and it fits together. You're exactly right. But alone, it is saying, humbly, your God, this is where you are. I may not have the understanding that some of the rest of you have in certain areas of this walk. But I am still on the journey, on the same journey. Excuse me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You are my God, and I am your God. You are Elohim to me, and I'm Elohim to you. And what happens is, when we recognize that, and we come to a place of agreement on what is or what should be, that is when we see it manifest. I can say it, but until the 13th, or until the wholeness of the piece buys into it or embraces it, that's when it manifests. That's when it comes to fruition. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Good morning, Ron. Just a quick comment.
Good morning.
This is Audrey. To me, it's saying that the only thing he requires is love and kindness, is because, and I'm kind of adding on to what ST and Barb said, it's just to level the playing field. I mean, because you talked about the poor in the beginning. Yeah, the poor can't afford bulls and rams and whatever. And this is not a thing that you can sort of buy your way out of. It just levels the playing field and establishes that beauty as a starting place that you can then move out from and then attain all those other fruits that George was talking about. But I think the Creator is saying this to just level the playing field for everybody.
What's more, what Audrey just said as well, is that this requires a change of somewhat for that individual. So it's not something that they can just give from without, like some possession. It actually requires them to present something from within, which in essence automatically determines who they are. It is in one sense, you can look at it as an inner gift.
Sheldon, it's a mutual change. It changes me, but it can change the person to whom I'm showing it as well.
Yes.
Yes, it makes them available. It automatically puts it out in the macro, the astral plane, so to speak. And you presenting that gift is automatically a possible spark for that same thing to be lit inside of them. It is a connection that they can grasp. So it is a gift, but an exponential gift in a way also that continues to give, or is full with unlimited potentiality.
Which is, before Pastor goes ahead, which is also your reward, which is also the reward of the giver, the continuing to give portion.
Yes.
You're giving of yourself as that person. You're seeing this person as an equal, and as I think Audrey said, leveling the playing field. So the giving is giving still to those who are like you, giving to yourself. This is a spiritual thing. And it's not like the first two verses where you're giving property, you're giving physical things. This is something spiritual that you're giving. And it comes back to you as also manifesting itself in you.
Just that last point that you just made. Yes, it is. Those other gifts that we're giving out, all those physical gifts, once you give those things in a sense are lost. So it is a negative, so to speak. If you have 10, just random, if you have 10 barrels of oil, you give out, I'm sure they didn't have barrels back then, but still something like that. You give out 2, you now have 8. With what we're talking about here with giving out that love, and with it being exponential, not only do you give out that love, but that love also is fed back in you. And so it grows within yourself as well and is greater. And so in return, you're receiving a gift also. So in the sense of love and kindness, with it also being exponential in terms of you giving it out for others to receive and to nurture within themselves, that which you are given from that source also is growing within inside of yourself, and you are receiving enjoyment and fulfillment, increased enjoyment and fulfillment with the sharing of it.
Very well said.
Okay.
Pastor, I think we cut you off. Did you?
That's okay. I was looking at verse 6 and 7 together in relationship to one of the things that Audrey raised, when she talked about the wealth you would have to have for the rams to be able to do that. Verse 6 says that, wherewith shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before the Most High, before the High God. It's talking about, should I submit myself to being who I am, of being Elohim, and then come before Jehovah? How should I come? Should I come bringing offerings with calves of Yeho? If you look up the root for offering, it's talking about, should I come with unrighteousness, offering calves of Yeho? Should I bring an unrighteous offering? Is what it's saying, actually. And then it says, will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams? Well, with thousands of rams, that's a metaphor for noble men, for wealthy men. With thousands of wealthy men who are able to bring rivers of oil. Oil was a symbol of wealth then. So it's totally discounted the material things that are that we think we bring to please the Lord, or to please Jehovah, and it's in speaking totally to the pleasures that we can bring to Jehovah, simply to walk in the midst of the divine, as opposed to all these other things that we have been told. And I think it's very pertinent. Very important that we are looking at this now. And one of the reasons being is that the nobility of Christendom is going to be expressed in just a few days with this idea of a humble presence before the cross of a crucified, quote unquote, Savior, being sacrificed for the sins of our souls. I think this is important because it helps us to see that our Father, our Creator, is not in any way in a position of accepting the sacrifice of a human for any purpose whatsoever, neither accepting the offerings that are being made. And what I mean by that is this: it doesn't matter what you give; it's not to be pleasing to the Creator. Even the tithes and offerings is not to please God, to please the Creator. It's for the benefit of the priesthood. So when we look at these verses, we see a total discounting of pretty much everything that we have been taught in regards to how religion functions today. The more money you have, the more noble you're seen to be. The more wealth you're able to give from, the more you're accepted in the midst of religious settings, etc. So that's it. I'm like Sheldon.
Good point.
Okay.
Good point. I want.
Oh, I was just about to say, on to the point where, what was he about to say just now? Like Sheldon, what?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was just going to add on to what he just said, Pastor Richard just said. The loving kindness automatically requires that this is a pure gift, void of any ill intent whatsoever. By the very nature of it, it necessitates that isn't an honest gift. When he brought up I can't remember 6 or 7, he mentioned about it not being basically their best. You cannot. This is not a gift that you can deceive or hide or cheat in any way.
Yes.
Ron, this is Barbara.
Yes,
just a comment, a brief comment. What man says is that the great equalizer is death and taxes. We all might have heard that. Death and taxes, that's the great equalizer. We're all going to have pay taxes and we're all going to die. But love is the greatest equalizer. Because I think as Audrey said, it places us all, we start at the same place, regardless of what we are, who we are, what we have, what we've done, what we've not done. It's an opportunity to place us all at the same spot without worrying about all those other, as Pastor talked about, the rams. We don't have to worry about all that stuff. When we love, and I think Sheldon said this is a pure, honest kind of sharing and giving. And it is giving and sharing. When we love from that perspective, then it kind of, all those other things kind of are in the background, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
This is Evelyn. Can I say something?
Of course.
It's easy to express that love to those who you really have no situations with. For instance, and then it could be a little difficult if you will let it to show it to those who really like irk you a little bit. And the reason why I said that is because it's this girl at work. She would just irk me so bad, and I know it's just me that I'm looking at, right? And she did something that I wasn't satisfied with, so to speak. But anyway, I talked to her because I knew that was my job to do. That's what I am supposed to do. That's just who I am, I'll say. Anyway, I had a conversation with her, and when I looked in her eyes, I realized I'm talking to me. And I showed love and kindness to her. Now she don't even irk me anymore. And I don't know if because the little leaven the whole lump or what, but yeah, I guess that is it. But anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Thank you, Evelyn.
Yeah, Evelyn, I appreciate you sharing that because I had the same encounter. So again, it's just confirmation for me, in terms of the challenge that, we all have, but thank you for sharing that, everyone.
Yeah, I think we've all had, okay, thanks, George. I agree with you, George. We've all kind of had similar. Mine was slightly different. I came to realize at work someone who always seemed to do something that I thought was intentional and just the opposite of what needed to be done. And just in sitting down and talking to the individual, I found that she was being sincere in what she was doing, and she thought that she was helping. And so, it opened my eyes to see that, not everyone has bad intent. People are, she's doing what she's doing out of love, and what I saw was something totally different. So it checked me. And that's part of what got us here today, is looking at, how many opportunities do you have in the course of a day to share love and kindness, to be kind to somebody? And, it just it's an ongoing thing. It never ends, and you never run out of opportunities. Okay? But
isn't it funny how, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll wait.
This is Barbara. I was going to just make an observation when George said these are some of the challenges we face. Isn't it funny how we think of these situations, and I'm also mindful of what Evelyn just said. We think of them as challenges or irritants, which is the first thing we think of. But in the vernacular, once we know who we are, we're called to flip that around. Mm-hmm. And I too have seen someone who's just really, really, really irked me, but it's me irking me, as Evelyn said. We need to flip that around and not see it as challenges, but opportunity to show love. Opportunity to show. Just like when we first learned about giving, everything I saw was, opportunity to give, opportunity to give. That's the way we need to look at it. It's an opportunity to be who we are, which is what our Father is, love.
Thank you, Barbara. Kathy, did you have something?
Yes, I was going to say right on the heels of what Barbara just said, I was about to say something similar. I wanted to go back to the comment that Pastor made because it really resonated with me, because the struggle with religion is recognizing that you're Elohim. So when he said, I become Elohim to you, and you become Elohim to me, that resonated with me because I hadn't thought about that, because we always talk about I'm the I am, I'm Elohim, but for what purpose? And when I recognized that purpose for me to be Elohim and loving kindness to someone else, that makes it easier for me to walk in and recognize who I am and to be loving kindness. Because when I think the struggle is when the church hears that you are God or you are Elohim, they shy away from that, because I think we have you don't always embrace with understanding that means not necessarily being Elohim just to minister or take care, and I'm using that word minister loosely, to take care of myself. But being Elohim automatically puts me in a position to have to want to be my brother's keeper and to take care of someone else, thereby becoming loving kindness and being able to give that freely without any reserve or any hesitation. And so I didn't want to let that just go by, because that resonated with me when you recognize that you are Elohim to be Elohim to someone else. So I just wanted to make that observation.
Okay. Thank you. It is a good place. I something else, because I wanted to go there too, is recognizing that you're Elohim in every situation, and especially in those situations as Evelyn and George and even my example in the situation where someone, and I think Barbara said it too, where someone has not quite lived up to what you think that, they should be doing, or getting on your nerves in some kind of way, being Elohim in those situations. We talked in the beginning about balance, and we've talked about balance a number of times before. Balance to me at this stage should be not so much of a leap, not so much as trying to balance the humanity and the spiritual side, but we find ourselves now, should find ourselves, hopefully finding ourselves more leaning toward the spiritual side and seeing the enlightened portion of ourselves. And in those situations, for example, the person I'm talking about and the person that Evelyn was talking about, maybe we wouldn't have taken those steps as easily 5 years ago as we do now. So, I'm sorry, Pastor, you were saying something?
I don't want to get too far off of where you were. When we talk about being Elohim in those situations, right? I kind of feel like that's a misnomer. That we're not supposed to be Elohim in those situations. We are Elohim, period. The problem is that we're being human when we are Elohim, period. When we look at the 82nd Psalm, the issue is not that we're not being Elohim often enough. It's that we are being human too often. Can you see the difference?
That was kind of my point, though.
Okay.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but it was just kind of my point that sometimes we are there and we recognize it, and you don't. Have you ever looked on the backside of being in a situation and looking at how you handle it and say, I like the way I handled that, and there are other times you look at it and say, well, I didn't handle that quite like I thought I would. And all I'm saying is the balancing gives us an opportunity to move to that place at an easier state just from desiring to be there is all I'm saying. Because sometimes you find yourself you're not quite where you want to be. That was the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
But Ron, this is Evelyn. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
Well, this is what makes it so easy for me to deal with people who get on my nerves is, Evelyn, you've gotten on somebody's nerve, and you probably still do. So if you want someone to be kind to you and compassion, you need to do the same thing, because what I do to them, I do to me. And when you get to that point, you be careful what you say and how you treat people.
Yeah. You get on folks' nerves, but it's okay.
What you said?
I love you.
Okay.
I think what I'm making an attempt to emphasize is that maybe we need to make a conscious effort to not delineate between human and Elohim and simply just be. We were not created to be human. We became that. We were created to be Elohim. So maybe I'm crazy. However, I find it difficult to think of situations where I'm going to be Elohim in this situation, or I was Elohim in that situation, as opposed to just simply being. And the reason I say that is because I have been accused of being the eternal optimist, in that regardless of what someone says about something or someone negatively, I always see the other side of it, or I see, as I have been told, I put a positive spin on it. When I'm not trying to spin it, it's simply looking at the positivity of it. And it hasn't always been that way, but that's the way it is now, if that makes any sense. And of course, I'm struggling with this because I believe that the instantaneous change that we seek only comes when we understand that balancing is not a balancing act, but balance is knowing who we are created to be. Balance is not about, as Ron said earlier, being balanced between being human and spiritual. Balance is about being what you were created to be, so that you can be the balance for those who are not who they're supposed to be, as opposed to you becoming a balancing act. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and I agree with what you were talking about first with the Elohim, in terms of having a paradigm shift and not thinking of it as I am a human being trying to reach this idea of this Elohim that I am supposed to be, and for there more so to be the viewpoint, not necessarily a striving for something, because it's almost like you're trying to elevate to another level, but actually something a lot more is to realize that we're Elohim first, and we're just having a human experience. How should I say this? We just basically just trying to say, not trying to turn into something, but more so realizing what we are. And then when you talk about the balance, I think what you're trying to say is, when we say balance, we're not talking about trying to get on this perfect level or to get things perfectly situated. Balance should be a place of comfort, and is more so settling into the natural state of things. Because to actually be human is to not be settled in the natural state of things. So it's not something that you're like necessarily just trying to do this whole bunch of work for. Like, oh, I got to get this thing very, very perfect, or I'm going to fall off, so to speak. It is falling into the natural state, and then it's almost like a calm and a peace and a caring. And when you say offering balance for other people, it is offering them that calm, that steadiness, that assuredness, etc., into their life when things may seem very chaotic and stable. All of a sudden, you are something from a spiritual and non-physical standpoint, something to hold on and to even steady themselves.
Yeah.
So then, go ahead, Pastor.
This idea of being elevated, it's not so much as being elevated as it is elevating our thoughts, because we cannot be elevated beyond what we are. It's like a person who thinks about themselves as being more of an animal. Because they think of themselves that way, it doesn't mean that they're not a person. So they can't be elevated to being a person. their thoughts about themselves has to be elevated, or their thoughts has to be transformed. So the transformation is not in elevation. The transformation is in perception, is it not?
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So
I guess, Pastor, now you could add this in. Part of what I looked at to kind of bring balance into it, if you look at the latter part of verse 8, it says to do justice and love and kindness, but justice not only talks about making judgments and making fair decisions to be right, it also talks about to argue a case for. And I don't see that as being arguing as per se. I see it more as wrestling with some things in you. And as you say, recognizing that you're Elohim who's had a human experience, that's more what I'm coming to that realization. So that's where I was kind of going with that. Do you see that tie-in, or do you see that as saying something different?
No, I do see the tie-in there. I do. I think my dilemma is trying to be more expressive of what I see, trying to articulate, I should say, of what I see as a necessity for us to cease to be in a constant battle or struggle between being Elohim and being human, and of course quotations around all of that, rather than just living and breathing it without having to think about it, without having to do check marks about how we approach things. Like when Evelyn said that I know that I get on other people's nerves. I said it jokingly, however, I meant it that when someone is getting on my nerves, it is me getting on my own nerves. And the irritant is not the person. The irritant is something that I need to deal with, and it doesn't mean the irritant is going to stop presenting itself, but it does mean that I can secrete loving kindness, and that irritant becomes a pearl now, and it doesn't bother me anymore, even though it has not changed at all. Does that make sense?
Yes, if that person's action stops, it's not necessarily anything changed in you, but when their actions, which may continue, has ceased to be an irritant to you, you have in some way grown beyond that, or corrected something within yourself.
And I think, yes, and I think that everyone who crosses our pathway, who is perceived to be an irritant, remains an irritant, because we don't necessarily do what Evelyn did. We cut them off by cutting the conversation short or by tuning them out, instead of allowing it to flow, because just maybe what we perceive to be an irritant is the pain of that person crying out simply for somebody to hear, or crying out saying, "See me." And if we view all of it that way, then that's our role. That's who we were created to be. That's what Elohim does. Elohim does not cut you off. Elohim did not cut Adam off. Elohim gave Adam opportunity to not only know that it was seeing it, but for it to see itself for what it is. And it could only see itself for what it is when it recognized itself in everything else around it, meaning in the midst of Elohim, in the midst of God. I see Ron as Elohim. So if Ron is an irritant, it is Elohim teaching me how to become a pearl. And it goes on and on and on. And if I see Ron that way, then the person with whom I come in contact at work or in any other circumstance is the same thing to me. So when we talk about treating those we don't know with the same respect that we do those we do know, then all we're saying is that treat everything that we perceive to be an irritant the same way, because everything that seems to be an irritant is an opportunity for us to realize that we are pearl, and in doing so, we become a mirror to them as well, and they can see the pearl that they are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
It does.
Ron, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-mm.
So this whole concept of humanity, of human rather, is an illusion within itself that becomes not one of, but the major distraction from our truly embracing who we are. Example, every single thing that is a distraction to us is something that has come from the womb or the mind of the human. Everything. There is absolutely zero distractions that does not have its genesis in what we call human. So when we are able to treat this thing human, or this concept of human, as being just that, an illusionary distraction, we cease to put space between the human and the and Elohim for purposes of check marks. We simply see it as non-existent, and we move on and continue to travel the journey being who we are, Elohim, period, without having to say it. It's like if you have to tell somebody you're a Christian, that's a problem. You don't have to say that you're Elohim. You just be it. You don't. And when we say that we are Elohim as opposed to being human, then we're saying that we are real as opposed to being an illusion in actuality. At least that's what I see right now, unless, somebody can help me see it more clearly. Thanks.
Although we've had, the scriptures are very repetitive, and they're that way for a reason. And you can hear things different ways, and you like a parable, you pick up on bits and pieces of it as it's released into you as you become mature enough to receive it or to see it. And I have to admit, I'm having one of those moments right now. It is hard for me, or has been hard, that for me to see that I am not human and growing into my spiritual. I know the spirituality has always been there, but I've always, I've not really fully grasped the concept of that or really accepted it until I'm hearing you say it now. And yeah, it kind of puts things in a different perspective. It kind of makes you look at it differently. And I guess opportunity for me to kind of ponder that and see where I am. But we've talked about that how many times, though, you know. And like I said, this is just one of those aha moments for me.
Yeah, and I think if we can, of course, it's a struggle because we're so accustomed to being in that place of that human thing, right? However, if we do it, and we will, like we do everything else, we'll get to that place where it is no longer a discussion, but it is a way of life. It is reality, if that makes sense. But it doesn't come without us observing the necessity for it. I guess that's it. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Anyone else, questions or comments?
I think Pastor. I was saying I think Pastor Richard started actually talking about the judgment, the justly part that you mentioned, and it goes directly. It connects directly with love and kindness. And usually, when we think about a judgment, we think about punishment, and judgment typically in the way that we use it has a negative connotation to it. But what judgment and justly is actually talking about here is not the idea, but the act of justly approaching or seeing that person that is an irritant, so to speak, looking at them with honor and dignity, and holding them up in accordance to what it is that they are as well. And so you're not discounting them, so to speak. And then the love and kindness piece actually follows that.
Yeah.
It's more so a preamble. It's the approach. It's the very start, or a part that cannot be taken away. It is an acknowledgement of that person and who and what they are. I'm trying to reach for the words. Go ahead, Ron.
No, I guess what I struggle with, or I'm struggling with, is the separation. I see Sheldon as being an irritant to me. I'm moving to the place, or it's that I see that is not Sheldon, it is me that is the irritant. We've talked about that. I guess have embraced it in some regard, but I still not quite there. I see what you're saying, and I agree with it. I agree wholeheartedly, but it's the oneness in the unity of, being one with that irritant. That's where I am, and not seeing that there is, not seeing that separation. Because everything you say, loving this love that it's talking about, Sheldon, is if you can picture a pie chart, and you take a pie chart and you give everybody a little piece of what's on there, and you have 5%, Barbara has 10%, whatever. But this love is, I give you 100% of this chart. I give it all to you. I give it all to Barbara. I give it all to Pastor. So it is not something that is negative in any regard, and it's something that I could share, and everybody have the whole piece of it. Everybody has the whole part of it, all of it rather. And the kindness is even part of the kindness. Even talk about to humble yourself, whatever it takes to be devoted to what this person needs, what you need to do to show this person and show yourself mercy and graciousness, and to lean toward whatever that person has a need for. So it's a very powerful thing, and I just readily tell you where I am with this. I study it, I enjoy it, I'm growing, but I'm also looking at some parts of it that I need some I guess ways to go with it.
Well, you also just explained it somewhat. So the irritant, if I'm your irritant, I don't believe I'm so much of your irritant. I think I might be more people's irritant on here than you, Ron, jokingly. But no, if if I'm your irritant, that gives you an opportunity then to reflect, because when the just part comes in, you get to say, okay, I am not upholding Sheldon, or at least perceiving Sheldon in honor and dignity right now. He's getting on my nerves. I just want to get rid of him. I want him to go somewhere. Now, when you notice, or you then look at it justly and say, no, at this particular moment, I'm not honored and dignified, or I'm not looking at Sheldon in a dignified way, that automatically is an opportunity for you then to turn around and deal with that yourself. And then you're able to get to the point where you're able to then provide the love and kindness. This doesn't just work also with other individuals, this works with ourselves as well. So this also means when I see myself as less than, it is almost like a reminder of sorts, so to speak, that no, and this is actually when the Elohim part comes in. I can say this is not true, and then I can start to give myself love and kindness, and then it gives me an opportunity to correct that thing that is causing that to begin with. Whether that is a belief, me being rigid, whatever, there's an opportunity to replace that, or basically deal with it, address it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it as you're explaining it, and I'm I'll get there. I'm just explaining to you. I see my shortcomings in this as well.
It's not you. Everyone deals with this, Ron. It's not just you.
Yeah. And here's the part that ties it all together, and ties in what you and Pastor just said. To walk humbly with God. To walk is talking about to go. It's your way of life, and it talks about to increase, to flow or move in a direction. So what direction are you moving into? That's, we're all moving in the same direction. You're moving into being love and kindness. You're moving into being righteousness. You're moving into, I am Elohim. I see that now. I accept that now. It does not make me prideful. It does not. It humbles me. I readily see who you are. I accept this. I accept regardless of what I see in leadership and what people are doing. I know who I am. I know who they are. And my disdain is not for the person doing this thing. I may not like the act, but I also see the Elohim in them. That's what I'm walking to. That's what we're walking to. That recognition, that awareness. It's not something new that's being given to us. It's there, and we're trying to see it. It's best to become aware to it in our own ways. Does that sum that up with what you were saying?
Yes.
Sheldon, there's, if I may, if there's no other questions or comments on this, I want to invite you all to go to something with me for just a minute. And not that we're forgetting Micah, but I want to look at Proverbs 19 and 17, if you don't mind. Proverbs 19, verse 17. Okay.
Where's that again, Ron?
Proverbs chapter 19, verse 17.
Okay, thanks.
Proverbs 19, verse 17. It says, he who is gracious to the poor man lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his good deeds. Now, still on the same subject of love and kindness, the question is looking at who is the poor man. Who is the poor man? And as one of the things that caught my attention here is all the things that some of the things that were said yesterday, and as we look in all the turmoil that's going on in there, going back to what Pastor said about Micah chapter 6 verses 6 and 7, looking at the wealth of people and the status, and the poor man has nothing to do with your status or your amount of money, of course, as we know. But it is he who does not know who he is. It is he who does not have any type of awareness of his spirituality. He may see himself as somebody who is in an earthly stance, has high status, he has high esteem, he has wealth, he has power, but he is poor in spirit. He does not recognize who he is. So he who is gracious to the poor man, who shows favor, who gives him mercy, he who bends toward him, or stoops down or lowers yourself to give him kindness, is what this is talking about. So I just thought, looking at that, I thought this kind of tied in, looking at who and where we are today. That kind of flowed with what we're looking at here. Any questions or comments? There's more in there, but I just want to show that part. And
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it the poor? Can it also be considered as those with the religious mindset? Because
yes, indeed.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That person who does not recognize who they are, that person who does not see Elohim, that person who holds no regard for who what the scripture is saying, and recognizing all men are equal, seeing the Elohim in every man. He does not have that ability. That is the poor man. You're absolutely right. So that is one of the verses that I guess, because there are similar verses in here that are like that, but that is one of the ones that kind of helps me throughout the day. As you look at people and those who may have certain positions that they hold and treat people a certain kind of way, you recognize that it's not something that you should hold a dislike or distrust or anything like that for somebody who who needs your presence. And that was something I thought that ties into what we're talking about today. But any other questions or comments on this?
Well, can we elaborate on the religious mindset, please?
Well,
I'll start if you want me to.
By all means.
Well, the reason I said the religious mindset is because religion puts you in bondage, and it has told us that God is external and not who we are. And I'll let someone else take the reins, please.
A religious mindset is anything that doesn't start on the truth of I am Elohim and you are Elohim. We both are Elohim. So I owe you the respect and the love and the dignity of just being who you are, regardless of what external trappings, like money, wealth, anything, status, that does not matter. If it doesn't start based on my understanding that I'm Elohim and that you are Elohim, anything above that allows for these other things to come into play. And that's a religious mindset. It allows for doctrine and dogma and judgment and all of those other things to begin, because I begin to see you in light of those things rather than the fact that you're Elohim and I'm Elohim.
Excellent. Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else? There was one more part of that verse that I thought was very interesting, and it says, he who is gracious to the poor man lends to the Lord. That word lend there talks about a borrower. The borrower becomes the lender. In other words, there is no separation between you and Yahweh. You become one and the same. You take on the responsibility of Yahweh. You're doing the things that Yahweh would do. You're showing mercy to the poor. You're exercising good judgment to the poor, meaning that you speak on their behalf. Who are you speaking to? You're speaking to yourself. You're speaking to Elohim. But you're bringing about a oneness between you and that one who you see as being the poor man who does not recognize who he is. You're closing that gap. Okay. So I just thought, yes, sir.
When you said that, something clicked. And when we talk about Elohim, right? And we talk about Yahweh, we are talking about attributes, which are functions, things that we are responsible for, right?
Uh-huh.
So attributes are what make us who we are. Therefore, it is impossible for us to be Elohim without being Yahweh.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the reason I say that, maybe I do need to elaborate a little bit on that. We've talked about Elohim, but if we are Yeshua, which is Jesus, right?
Okay.
Then what are the attributes that are wrapped in that name, Yeshua? Is Yahweh who delivers, or Yahweh are the one who delivers? So when I say that, the attributes of Elohim, the attributes of Yahweh, is what makes us who we are. We become consistent, and I use that word consistent emphatically. We become consistent deliverers when we are insistent that we are Elohim. If we are dubious about being Elohim, it is an impossibility to be reflective of the attributes of Yahweh. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Questions or comments about that?
Say that again, please.
If we are dubious about being Elohim, it is impossible to be reflective of the attributes of Yahweh. We cannot be a deliverer if we can't be the foundational attributes that we are, because the foundational attributes is all tied together by loving kindness. That's Elohim. And because that loving kindness, our deepest desire is to be deliverance to everyone, which is Yahweh. Does that help?
Yes, but what's the difference between, because what I heard was persistent deliverers. You said consistent deliverers. And once we understand that we're Elohim, then the persistent deliverer is what resonated with me, because whatever it takes to show loving kindness is what I am to do, to be, because that's who I be.
Right, okay. Yep. Okay. I see that. You're absolutely right.
Well, that goes into the commitment that you spoke about yesterday.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to be who you are and show,
Right.
Yes. So
I see a journey that we are on clearer than I've seen it before. And that is what we're actually talking about is coming to the realization on this journey that we are every attribute of deity that the scriptures speak of. The one thing that we have been consistently separated from is the embracing of the deified personalities that the scripture speaks of, even that of Abu.
Okay. Comments or questions, anybody?
Ron,
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question. I don't want to take you too far off where you are. But when we went to this particular passage and it was talking about those that are poor in spirit, when you look at that, when you look at the Beatitudes and it talks about blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I'm trying to draw that parallel. Is it that they will receive the kingdom principles because we recognize that being Elohim, that we are not going to shun them, like we talked about earlier, the person that's working me or something, that person that has no idea of his or her identity or the identity of who they are spiritually. How, I guess my question is, how do they embrace those kingdom principles? Because it says that's what is theirs. Those kingdom principles belong to the poor in spirit. So could you tie that in, or am I taking you too far off?
Kathy, I'll make an attempt to tie it in, but of course, I rely on everyone else's input on this. But I think what if I go back to what Jesus was talking about, you look at the time. Or the leadership was doing to the people and what the church was doing. The church wasn't, I guess a lot of what no different than what you see today. The church is not feeding people or showing them anything spiritual. They were, the people were hungry to know, to understand and see who they were, and they were not receiving that. So I guess that is really no different than where we are right now, what this is talking about. So the feeding of them is those who have, as it has already been said, to bend down or to move to a place or humble yourself. If you move to a place of awareness and you see that there is someone else who is not there, as Barbara said, you do whatever it takes or however long it takes to bring them to that place of understanding. So I'm not sure if I'm fully answering your question, but that's kind of what I see is that person who may desire to be enlightened or to move to a place of awareness those who are at that place or moving in that direction are obligated to be shed light on whatever situation that they need, give them whatever need and whatever is available to you to show them. Can somebody help me out with that?
Well, those who are the poor in spirit, what it's saying to me is that they can avail themselves of the same thing that I have available. In other words, they just don't, as you said, they aren't aware of it yet. It's like having, for lack of anything better, a money in the bank and not knowing you have it in the bank. But it's all you need is right there. But you have to just know it's right there for your use. It's saying to me that the poor in spirit, from Elohim's perspective, are blessed as well. In other words, it's like we were saying, I have to look, as Pastor said, I am Elohim, and I have to look at you as you are Elohim. But the key thing is the promise is there, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. In other words, the boundaries are the same boundaries that I have, they can have as they become aware of it. And they can have that opportunity to become aware of it by me being who I am and through and showing loving kindness. That they have, and putting it in the macro, they have opportunity to gain that kingdom within themselves as well. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not being very precise in my description, but I see it, but I can't really verbalize it the way I want to.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
The part that I wanted to
Anyone else?
The part I wanted to add on to that for others that may be listening, when we talk about the King of Heaven from the Beatitudes, also, we're not talking about a place or an experience after these people, quote unquote, transition or pass away. When Jesus was talking about what the Father is like, he talks about the kingdom of heaven. And so just want to point out that what Ms. Barbara is talking about right now is the idea that they, not just an idea, but they have the opportunity to experience that. It is within their grasp. And in contrast, when you really think about it, when you think about poor, you think about the idea that no one wants to be poor, but yeah, this thing is available to anyone. Heaven, the kingdom of heaven, here now on earth, is available to anyone.
To add to that, when you talk about the poor in spirit, and you talk about the fact that we are all Elohim, as Sheldon was saying, when they have the opportunity to realize that, but when I, as a person, shows love and kindness to that person, I'm helping them realize that spirit within them. And sometimes it only takes a little thing for people. You never know what makes people turn on or click. And sometimes it can be any little thing, that uplifts you. And that's a thing you can't put into words. Even the person themselves can't usually put that into words, but it can be a very simple thing that uplifts people and gives them some insight into who they are. So when we show the love and kindness, we offer them an opportunity to see who they are.
Okay. I like that. Does that answer your question, Kathy?
It does, because I wanted to tie that in. And I was just thinking, when I had a student that I worked with many years ago, I was the first African American that she had encountered to work with on a personal level, and she told me as her counselor she was not going to like me because her family did not like black people. And I in turn basically just said that, you know what, you're my student. That doesn't change anything for me. I'm going to treat you the same as I treat all of my students. And after 3 years of having that student, when she was ready to leave, and I may have shared the story with you guys before, she wrote me a letter and thanked me because she realized that the color of skin didn't make any difference. She actually wrote me a letter telling me how much she loved me, because in that instance, instead of choosing to be hostile, or instead of choosing to give her back what she was giving me, I remained loving kindness, and I really did like her, because it wasn't her fault that she had been taught these things. And even if it had been her fault, for whatever reason, it wasn't going to change how I approached her. And as a result of that, it changed her whole mindset about hoping for the rest of her life, race and racism and all of those things. And I can see how loving kindness, it is love that covers a multitude of entanglements. It really does change people.
You were her mirror.
Yeah, I like that. If I can sum this up, in my attempt to sum this up, just as we ended, love covers a multitude of sin, and that's the loving kindness portion of this is what kind of was the catalyst of this lesson, bringing it out, and looking at walking into who you are and accepting that and embracing that. And also, which is probably, at least for me, one of the more important portions of this is recognizing and appreciating everybody who's on this phone, even the ones who may not talk today. Maybe you talk some on Saturdays, maybe you talk on Mondays, maybe you don't. But just the energy of all of the people who want to see truth, to be loving kindness, and recognize that that unity is what makes us whole. That unity is what brings out the truth when we open this book and look at scriptures and bring out the truth in it. We all, even though we may not all speak at the same level or at the same amount of knowledge, rather, or even use the same amount of words, we glean as much from it as we can because of our desires. And those of us who see more, who bring more to the table in that regard, puts us all at even keel. So it starts with that love and that desire. And I even appreciate, as I said, recognizing that although this has been told to me over 1 billion times, and of course that's an exaggeration, I still wrestled with the human part, and I see now I fully embrace that, being Elohim and just having a human experience and understanding that now and saying, oh, I see, you didn't have to tell me 1,000,000,001. I got it the first 1,000,000,000 times. So this is been enlightening to me, recognizing your being Elohim, recognizing our responsibility to self, to each other, and to those who may be irritants to us, those who may not care at all for you even, or what you want to show them, but showing them loving kindness as well. Not because of, first, anyway, because if that's who you are. Not that you have to make any effort to bend in that direction, but you do so just because that is what you do and what you're supposed to do. So I see that as in today's time, especially how diverse this world lives right now, and spinning in different directions, and loving kindness not only can prevail, will prevail. And I appreciate all the input. I hope it was a thought, that everybody got a thought from this. And if not, we'll may visit it at another time. But is there anything that I missed, or any last thought that someone that may have to say, like to say?
I don't think you missed it.
Hey, Ron. This is Charles.
Yes. Hey, Charles.
The reason I know this is showing his face, showing light on it, because on the news, this man had a car lot, and he bought these cars, and some were donated, and all the cars that he had, he fixed them up, made them good, and this guy was needing a car, he gave it to him. And not only that, every car in his parking lot was given to one that was in need for a car. And he said, it's not just given to black people. Anybody that want a car can come and get one. If they're in need of a car. And he signed the title and stuff over and did everything they need. They drove off with a car. And all of them appreciate it. And about like when Jesus healed these men, only one came back. This man in this car came back because he had tears in his eyes and was thanking him for the car. Because he really needed the car to get to work and do everything he needed. And for his family. And he said, no problem. I mean, I'm glad I can help. And there's still decent people in the world, still doing good things to people.
That's a good example, Charles, and kind of backs up what everybody said here. At the end, I think Barbara said it just take one little thing, or just one little spark might do it. That might be the thing that changes life. I don't think she used the word spark, but you know what I mean. One little thing may be the thing that changes his life. That might be the thing that he sees that help him to have a more confidence in who he is, and see start him on a different journey. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ron.
Yes, sir.
You are concluding. I think that something has started today, and I think the thing that has started is the beginnings of the puzzle beginning to take shape. You know how you do a puzzle, put a puzzle together, and at some point in that puzzle you begin to see the picture taking shape?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we are at this juncture. And I say that because what came to mind when I saw that is, I remember saying to people who, especially on that Monday night class, and to those who were with me from the beginning, that if you don't want your Jesus to be taken away from you, you're in the wrong place, because I'm going to show you some things that are quite different than what you've been taught. And what I'm saying is this. We're at a junction now where people are going to begin to feel extremely uncomfortable about what we are being shown. And I say that because the picture is beginning to develop. And what I am beginning to see is that you cannot speak about a broom, Elohim, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever term you use, that is a term of identifying attributes of a deity. Those terms cannot be used without describing who we are. And in discussing those attributes, which means discussing Scripture, of course, we're going to begin to see more clearly those things that make us who we are, which means that we're going to begin to move further and further away from this notion of being religious humans as opposed to being universal gods. And there are those who, I'm sure, are going to find great discomfort in that. And there is no shame in it. If there's discomfort, that's just what it is. However, if you don't ever experience this type of discomfort, you will never experience the comfortability in being who you were created to be. And to that I say, you have spent all your life in religious settings, and you're still in the same place where you were at the inception of this journey of religion. It is now time for a decision to be made whether or not you want to remain stuck in the mud of religion or to travel the spiritual highway of divinity and be in the universe that you were created to be, and at the same time being an asset to the humanity that we have been looking for the universe to be an asset to. It is incumbent upon us to embrace this reality that if there is ever to be a manifested asset to humanity, so that humanity can look beyond that illusion and see its real nature, then that reality is us. I say that without hesitation or without reservation. And continuing to travel this journey is going to make it extremely difficult to revert to settings of religion at the end of this pandemic or at any other time for that matter. It's going to make it extremely difficult to play the game of religion, embracing all of those doctrines that are toothless, powerless, without merit, phony, duplicitous, and all the other stuff. So I submit to you that this day marks another aspect of this journey of enlightenment. However, this time is different in that it will be replete with spiritual insight, spiritual understanding, and manifestations beyond anything that the quote-unquote human mind could ever imagine. I'm done. Into you, Ron.
Okay. Any last closing questions or comments? Sheldon, you have any notes you want to talk about?
No, not today.
Oh, Sheldon, I got something to say.
Okay. All right. I hope, I sincerely hope everyone got a thought from this, and I more than anything hope it made sense to you. If not, please let me know, or one of the teachers, let Pastor, one of the teachers know, and we'll do it again if we have to. We'll visit as often as we need to. Okay? Thank you. I appreciate your attention, and I hope you have a good week.
Good lesson, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ron.
Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ron.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Thanks, Ron.
Bye, Pam.
Everybody have a good evening.